Today's episode is sponsored by the Christian Standard Bible. The goal of the CSB is to be faithful to the original languages without sacrificing clarity, all the while maintaining both accuracy and readability. With beautiful designs and multiple study Bible options, everyone, from adults to teens to children, can find a CSB Bible that they enjoy. Learn more at csbible.com.
Welcome to Real Talk Christian Podcast, where we drink coffee and have real conversations on faith, culture, and society. This is Marc, Hyde.
And Chris Fuller.
And today's episode of Real Talk Christian Podcast, we are going to be asking the question, is it okay for Christians to judge others? In the world that we live in, we always see, oh, don't judge people, don't judge people, don't judge people, but is it ever okay to judge? Fuller, you ready to have this conversation?
Let's go!
What's up, good sir?
What's going on, buddy? How are you?
Dude, I am so excited to say this.
Okay.
We found them.
We found them.
We found them.
We
The listeners
see
from
dead
down under. We
people.
found them.
Oh, crikey, mate. How's it going?
But see, here's
Put
the
a shrimp
problem,
on
though.
the barbie?
Is now that we know that we have true Australian listeners, you can't do your accent anymore. Or does that validate it? Does that validate it?
That was just validating.
I mean, we have listeners now in Northern Ireland, in Scotland.
Scotland.
We have stinking shipped a Bible to Scotland, which was awesome.
Yes. Expensive.
But awesome.
Expensive.
And then we got, Raina's now in the States. She's not South Africa anymore.
We waited for her to come back.
We got some of them Canadian folks.
Oh, hello here.
Which Sabrina, we'll have your fun fact with Sabrina in a couple episodes,
Yeah,
right?
a couple episodes. Your fun fact has made the list.
I am excited for that. And then Wes, we have India, the consulate office in India.
Yeah.
This is just wild, bro.
It's crazy.
It's just absolutely wild. But Matt, is it Majin? Is it McGinn? I don't know. I'm calling you out in front of everybody, buddy, so you better get the name right. But he says, because, whenever we have a handful of new listeners over in the Facebook group, we always do a welcome post where it's just, hey, introduce yourself, let us know where you're from.
He's like, Australia.
He's like, I'm from Brisbane, Australia. I'm like, I
From down
found you.
under.
Because a few days before he commented, I said, dude, we have a spike in Australian listeners. And who are they?
I have a question for him, and maybe he can answer us.
Okay.
I know, they drink beer, but I want to ask a specific question.
What?
They drink a lot of beer, but
We're not talking about the Irish people.
But I want to ask a specific. Do you do like a coffee shoey? I'm just curious. I mean, or is it just a warm beer thing? Because, I mean, it's already kind of disgusting, but it'd be even more disgusting if it was coffee. You know what a shoey is? Correct me. You don't know what is that your brain? Like, what the heck is he talking about?
That's my brain.
So a shoey is
I had the pad ready.
a shoey. See, this is how you know you've watched too much TikTok. A shoey is like when they put warm beer in like a shoe or a boot and they drink it out of the shoe.
Is that
called a
for real?
shoey.
I thought that was a joke. I thought that was just some stupid frat boys doing stupid frat boy things.
It may be.
Is that cultural?
I don't
now
know
I feel
if it
bad
is.
that I said that out loud.
I don't know if it is, but that's why I'm curious. Is that like something you do with all drinks, or is that just like warm hot beer
I don't know.
at a frat party?
I mean, I don't know if we're supposed to have like confession time right now, but the best thing I ever had was down at Disney. It was half cider, half beer, but that was really yummy. This is a kid show. We're supposed to talk about coffee.
The best thing I've ever had was in this Jesus mug right here.
There you go. Nice transition. Is it wine?
No, it's wine run through the yum yum machine.
There you go, dude. I love our Facebook community has been fun. Where it's like somebody, I'll take coffee too crazy. I'm like, you gonna start a fight? You gonna start a fight? Don't start a fight.
Yeah, it was a pretty good one today.
It is a lot of fun. But no, I am doing real good, buddy. I am tickled pink though about the fact that we found our little friends
Tickled
from
pink
down under.
or tickled red?
Tickle me Elmo.
You got the reference, all right.
Tickle me Elmo. Yes, sir. So that's all I got, dude. I'm real excited about that.
I am too. I'm so excited. You know what I pulled up though? So I'm really excited about this because we haven't done this for a while.
Okay.
It's this one little fun game called party cues.
We have not done party cues in
And
a little
sir,
bit.
I think you should pick the category.
All right, so in case people don't know, we like to play these fun little games before the show actually starts, so that way you guys can get to know us a little bit and hang out.
Don't forget the lock is like you can't, because I'm not paying for it. So
Why not? Are those all locks? Let's.
ooh,
What's that?
the would you? Okay,
Oh man,
this or that.
we already do this or that. Okay, we're ready.
Movie theater popcorn or ballpark hot dog. See, this one's a tough one, right? Because there's nothing like a good hot dog at a baseball game, but there's nothing better than like a good full buttered and salted
Hot dog. I would say hot dog.
I think I'm going with popcorn.
I want a South Bend Cubs hot
Piper.
dog.
Piper would kill me if I didn't say popcorn because that's what she loves. So Piper, this one's for you.
Which,
popcorn.
Side note, I mean, obviously we talked about the last 3 episodes, all my Top Gun references, but like we went to Top Gun after dinner. We were stuffed, and like we were walking into the theater, and Beth goes, "I'm sorry, I have to have popcorn," and she bailed and went and got some popcorn before the movie, and it hits. Popcorn hits, but dude, a ballpark Frank. Oh,
yeah,
not like a ballpark Frank, but like. You know what I'm talking about.
From
like
the ballpark.
Actual ballpark.
Yeah. All right.
Hot dog. Aaron's are phenomenal, too.
Let's do another one here.
Actually, here's a fun question. Do you like Aaron hot dogs better or like Costco?
I like
Kirkland brand. I like Aaron's. Aaron's hot dogs are my
I
favorite.
like the actual like ballpark brand.
They're solid.
That's
They're solid. Okay, we got another one?
All right, this or that. Nike or Adidas?
Adidas, 100%.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with it. I'm not that old.
So here's the real question. Why did you choose Adidas? I have a reason why I chose Adidas.
So, because they're comfortable. That's about the only reason.
But everything's comfortable.
No.
If that's the case, you should be rocking them's dad New Balances, those white New Balances with the grass stains on them.
Actually,
with the jorts.
No, I do the Pumas.
foam clip?
That's what I use.
You are a Puma guy, aren't you? Your red ones are Pumas, right?
My old ones are.
Yeah.
The new ones aren't. The new ones are from Amazon.
Really? Oh, I didn't know that. See, I chose Adidas because everyone else in my class was Nike. I grew up back in Northwest Indiana.
Wanted to be different.
Outside of Gary, and I wanted to be a little different. Everyone loved Nike and Jordans. I'm like, nope, I want Adidas, so I chose Adidas.
All right, one more. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or Full House?
Oh, there's no question. Fresh
House.
Prince. What? No. Really?
Wow.
You would rather choose Mary Kate and Ashley Olsen over...
No, wait.
Over...
No, wait.
Over the Fresh Prince.
Pause. Sorry. Rewinders, you'll get it eventually.
if it depends how far back you've gone.
So
Denomination. That was a denomination episode? Or I paused you? Or the Sunday service was designed for believers or unbelievers, maybe?
I don't know. It was
we got
early
heated. We got
on.
heated on that one.
But no, Uncle Jesse, man, and Joey and Danny, like.
I got one word. I got one counter argument.
Okay.
Uncle Phil. Did you ever see that episode where Will Smith actually cried on his shoulder because he was saying everything about his dad in the pool hall when he had to pull his butt out of all these different things when they were stuck in like Vegas or something like that and they had to
Uncle Phil's good.
Uncle Phil
I'm
was
not
glorious.
I'm not downing Fresh. I love Fresh Prince, but I'm saying if I had to choose one or the other, it'd probably be Full House.
Give me Fresh Prince, man.
Yeah,
I love Full House.
So it's like Family Matters, right? I love Family Matters too.
Steve Urkel.
But I would still probably pick Full House because just the dynamic of them. It's like, oh man, that'd be so cool to have like 2 uncles and my dad. Like, this is so cool. Like how they all interact. And Jesse's the cool one who rides the Harley, and the Joey's the funny one. It's like
and
they all
goofball. You are Joey.
They all have like
you would rock Uncle Joey.
Honestly, right? The 3 of them make up the like perfect dad, right? A dad who's clean and responsible, funny, but rides a Harley.
But not in real life.
Yeah, not
Bob Saget was a nasty. I mean, rest in peace. But still, like his guy. One day, his comedy sketch was on Netflix. I'm like, oh, let's give this a shot. And I went, oh no,
yeah, no,
you can't play that. Around.
Anyways,
but no, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, 100%.
All right,
the lessons that Uncle Phil taught, Will. And then there was Will and Carlton's relationship and the OG and Viv.
I feel like you need to go and rewatch Full House, the original Full House. You need to do it again.
I did recently.
What? But
still, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air is also like, that was when I started like, this is my show. You know what I'm talking about? Like when you're at like that teenager age, when you're like, this is my show.
Dude, that show was on way before you were
but it was on every day after we got home from school when our Amish came. Okay. So yeah, Fresh Prince, 100% Fresh Prince, bro.
All right. Well,
Fresh Prince.
Thank you for playing and putting up with our party cue talk.
Dude, what coffee we drinking tonight, bro?
This is actually one of the coffees that Mr. Rodney Buse from But What Does the Bible Say sent to me.
Can you top me off, actually?
I'll just hand you.
Can you hand it to me? Because this is really yummy.
So this is it's called Steady Hand. And it is very good, very fruity notes.
Yeah, it's very fruity. It's full body too. Like
very
it's not,
full body. And it was made out of the drip, which I was like, oh, okay, this isn't going to be that great because it's drip. You might want to shake it before it's probably settled.
Shake, shake
or
it.
not. But
I didn't pour it yet.
Okay.
I'm trying to have a steady hand when I pour.
Steady. Yeah, because the Roadcaster's right there.
Well, no, and it's called Steady Hand Coffee.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Wait, where's the pad?
Get on my level, Fuller. Get on my level.
So, yeah, it's a very, very, very good coffee. I think this is like a dessert coffee.
Yes,
like
100%.
This is one like you eat a good steak and baked potato, and then like you have a piece of pie in this coffee.
Oh, I was going to say a piece of cinnamon coffee cake.
Ooh, that's even better. We'll go with
Actually,
that
monkey
one.
bread. Monkey bread.
Oh,
would be
the
dope.
pull-apart monkey bread? Yeah,
Dude,
boy.
Okay, so I love my wife. We had meatloaf on the menu.
I knew it. I knew it was coming. I knew it. Once I saw that it was on the menu.
Like monkey bread has been her thing lately.
Dude,
I am here. I am never going to be skinny.
You better slow down. You're going to start looking like me.
Well, I already told Beth. I said I will never ever. And I pulled up a picture. I'm like, I will never look like this again. And she goes, good. I'm like, oh, geez.
This show only works when you're the skinny guy and I'm the fat guy. Okay, it's I'm the comic relief and you're the normal average. You're the looks. Yeah, you're the looks. I'm the comic relief. There we go.
I'm your uncle. You're Joey and I'm Jesse.
Stop eating. No, you're more like Danny. But stop eating.
I'm an impatient Danny Tanner. I'm an impatient Danny Tanner.
Come on, let's be honest here.
That's true. No, I haven't been to the gym in a few weeks because of life, man.
Soche is like a Danny Taylor, or like a Jesse.
No, he is not.
I could totally see shows. Soche, you remember what he's in a metal band? He was in a metal band and all that stuff.
Yeah,
that would
but
be
not
Uncle
rock
Jesse.
and roll. Jesse was like blue suede shoes.
But that could have been
great balls of fire.
But that would have been Soche at the end of the 80s and early 90s before metal was a big thing. I guarantee if he was an adult, he would have been wearing like the whole parachute pant looking thing with the like colored cut off and riding the Harley with the long hair. That would have been Soche. Soche, prove me wrong.
Prove us wrong. I actually want to know. Would Soche?
All right, let's dive into this review though.
Oh,
this one is a you review because
why do I have to read this one?
Because you wrote the topic and I just thought it was funny.
And it doesn't. There are words in here that I can say. Every word in this review I can actually say.
Yes, you can, except for the name.
Okay, so this review is left for us over on Apple Podcasts, which, reminder, if you're over on Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and review, even though we are officially past the 100 review giveaway. Oh, my Spotify's playing. Even though we are officially past the 100 review giveaway, we still want those review. And I'm checking right now on Spotify. We have 332 ratings.
So, and I believe we're up over 315 subscribers on YouTube. And if you haven't checked out our YouTube channel and you want to get kind of the funny jokes of the fat kid joke, go check us out on YouTube if you aren't there already.
I did my hair for the show.
I did not. I just bumming it again.
There you go. But anywho, so this review is left for us from April 20th, 2022 from...
Literally...
Where are you from, bro? What Nordic country are you from?
It's GGJHJKLKJHFSASDGKHFS.
I think it's Sabrina. Her cat's got a hold of her keyboard.
Tell you what.
Like a cat just walked across the keyboard when you're trying to do this.
That's a good name.
This is not Sabrina because it says my girlfriend. So this is definitely not Sabrina.
This is why you should never pretense genders, right?
My bad. Anyway, so it says, I've been listening to, let's see. I've listened to about 4 podcasts already in one day.
Wow. Nice.
I have been struggling with my Christian lifestyle recently. My girlfriend challenged me to a 30-day challenge of only listening to Christian music and podcasts. Y'all were the number one that popped up when I searched Christian podcasts. This podcast really has made me feel more confident and has encouraged me to grow in my faith. I love everything y'all do and everything I have already learned. I listen to the podcast at work during my 11-hour shift, so I have plenty of time to listen and to not only listen, but absorb the information. This is helping me a lot with my day-to-day life. I love y'all so much already, and I'm sure it will just continue to grow.
Well,
that is awesome.
GGJHG. Thank you. We appreciate it. I love the name.
It's very Cardi B of you.
Wow.
I can't even do her like when she does okay, but she does that I can't even imitate Cardi B. Beth has a terrifyingly good impression of Cardi B making fun of her saying okay. But anywho, but if you've left us a review, reach out to us. It's on Anywhere, Instagram, Facebook, email, and
We're
just
on-
let us know where we can send that mini swag bag.
As I said in the Getty video, we're on all the socials.
On all besides TikTok, we're not on TikTok.
We're on
that
all
takes,
well, actually,
that takes too much work.
I had made us a TikTok, but then I was like, no, I didn't do anything with it, and I deleted it because I was spending too much time watching TikTok.
We're on TikTok.
We technically have a TikTok account, but there's nothing on it.
TikTok takes too much work.
You know what? It's hard enough for me. I can't even keep up with the Twitter anymore.
No one can. I mean, shoot, it's all
ridiculous.
bots.
Yeah, that's all.
It's all
it is,
bots.
so.
Which I'm curious to see what's going to happen if Elon Musk is really going to drop it or not. We're going to find out.
We'll see. Anyways,
find out.
let's dive into this conversation.
So we
Mark,
are
you set it up.
jumping into this conversation, and to be honest with you, I mean, we're recording this right now in the middle of Pride Month, June, which honestly, that has nothing to do why we brought up this conversation. It's been more the fact of the more you and I have had conversations with other people and trying to figure out just how we're supposed to live the Christian life, many times you often hear the phrase come up of like, well, I'm who am I to judge? Which, to be honest with you, I've said that a lot. Like about certain things, I'm like, well, you know, I don't really agree, but who am I to judge on this, that, or the other when it comes to lifestyle preferences or like not like who you're going to love, but legitimate lifestyle preferences. But you hear this a lot in today's culture when it comes around like the LGBTQ conversation, where, you know, love is love. Don't judge nobody before you know them. And who you're not supposed to judge, and Christians aren't supposed to judge. So just let it be.
Only God can judge me.
Only God can judge me, which we talked about, I think, in the Christian coffee mug episode.
Probably.
But, you know, it seems like more and more the conversation comes up, the more and more Christians are accused of being judgmental. You know, with Roe v. Wade, with all that conversation that's coming out of the Supreme Court, with obviously with Pride Month, with, you know, different things like with I don't want to just say woke theology, but like you know, Black Lives Matter and these different things that are all dividing the church, where people are falling on one side or the other. Generally, it's almost like it's a silver bullet when someone just says, "Well, who are you to judge?" Or like, "Well, you're not supposed to judge," or, you know, I'm not here to judge anybody.
And it works because Christians are instantly like,
well, right, and that's it. When someone said it to me, when someone's like, "Well, who are you to judge?" I want to be like, yeah, yeah, good point. No, like you don't know what to do because
you immediately start to self-reflect and like totally lose track of the conversation.
Right, because it's, in my opinion, I don't know if it's a red herring or if it's a straw man. I think it might be a red herring, where it's the fact of you're having a legitimate, intelligent conversation, then all of a sudden it's like, well, who are you to judge? I'm like, whoa, well, that didn't, okay, well, I guess we're done with this conversation now.
This conversation's over.
and that's what it is the fact of whenever people are having tough conversations about lifestyle, generally when it comes to what one set of groups says this is a preference, whereas another set of groups says, no, this is truth, generally the side, whatever side is feeling like they're the ones being attacked, they just say, well, who are you to judge?
Right.
And for us as Christians, to be honest with you, I don't want to be known as someone who judges people either.
Quick question, right?
Yeah, go for it.
It has to do with the podcast, but not exactly everything I think we're going to talk about tonight. But I when people say that, right, I wonder if it's a defense mechanism because they don't want to actually find truth or what truth is, but it's a deflection of, I just want to live in my sin.
You talking about my story again?
No, but is that your story?
Well, I mean, what was done to me?
Oh.
Your eyes just got big.
I was like, see, I felt like I was judging. I wasn't trying to.
No, but seriously though, like there's been people where it's like they are caught in their sin, and it's like, oh, this one's like, well, you know, like let's just not look at what's right or wrong here, but let's really just talk about what's best.
You're judging me. Okay, that's an instant like, I'm rubber, you're glue statement almost. Right,
exactly. And that's the thing is the fact that, well, you're judging me. And it's like, yes, I am. And so, which comes to the question of, okay, so do we have a bad definition of what judging actually means? Mm-hmm. And then there's a bunch of other questions that fall along the same side of, can Christians judge people? Can Christians judge unbelievers? Because you hear that a lot where it's like, well, we as believers can't hold unbelievers to a believer standpoint. So yeah, of course we can't judge. And people fall on different sides of the argument with that side. I know we'll get into that conversation.
Right.
And then can Christians judge other Christians inside of the Christian faith? And then this is something that I didn't put any notes down on this one because it was just a question I wanted to float out there, and then we can chat about it at the end, is accountability and judging someone the same, or is it different? Because what some people view as accountability, they view as judging. And that thought process comes from a post from I think it's the Naked Pastor, is the Instagram account.
Wait,
yeah.
what?
Well, the idea of exposure.
Oh.
like the like.
I thought it was like a nudist colonist or something. Like, hi, welcome to the nudist colony. I'm the naked pastor.
No. He's been around for a long time.
You know, we got one right down the road here. Right?
And I actually, I think it's the naked pastor. I'm trying to see.
I'm sorry, I just threw up a big rabbit
Yeah,
trail.
there it is. Yeah, David Hayward, naked pastor, 109,000 followers on Instagram, and he had a post, and someone tagged me in it, and they wanted my opinion on it, and I just haven't gotten back to it yet. So, if that person's listening, give me a little bit, and I'll get back to it. But inside of that post, man, homeboy posts a lot. Jeez, bro, could you slow down so I can find this for me? Live on the show? Well, no. There's a reason for it. It's the fact of they were talking about in the thing of what's the difference between control and accountability. And what pastors say, oh, no. We have accountability in our church. People on the outside go, no, that's not accountability. That's manipulation and that's control. And you see that inside the church where it's if I'm trying to hold you to a certain standard, people are instantly thrown back and they're like, oh, you're just trying to control my life. And it's no, I'm trying to live according to God's standards. And then all of a sudden that's where a lot of people I think kind of drop and walk away,
right?
Where they can't differentiate in their own minds, is this accountability or is this someone trying to control me? Because there is a lot of stories, I mean, even coming out of specifically the independent fundamental Baptist world,
right,
where it is a controlling denomination, whether or not you call it a denomination or not, that's what it is. Where if you leave that denomination, those pastors will cause every one of your friends to turn their backs on you, and they will badmouth you from the pulpit. They will use fear and manipulation tactics to keep people in line and in order. So it's is that what's happening here? Where if we're calling people to repentance and we're calling people into accountability, are we actually judging them? Are we supposed to just let the Holy Spirit do his thing and then we kind of just walk and do our thing and not worry about anybody else? So I figured that would be kind of the tone of the conversation today, is just to figure out what on earth does the Bible actually have to say about judging? Does the Bible say we should judge or shouldn't judge? And then are there good or bad ways to do it? And then we'll just see if we come out at the end of this conversation unscathed.
Probably will or not.
So I brought some Bible passages along with me.
Listen in.
So yeah, this is going to be
grab your Bibles.
Is this going to be a Mark
page.
Talk conversation today?
You know what? I'm enjoying the ride right now. I can tell you, it's oh wow. I could actually. You know what?
You could drink some coffee, bro.
All right, man.
I will say
you go
this.
for it. I got you.
When it's a solo podcaster, I feel for you guys who do solos every single day, because for us, we can just have little coffee sip breaks.
Or I can just say, hey, Mark, take the wheel. Take it from my hand. I'm going to drink my coffee now.
I'm not going to hit that next high note. I'm going to leave that for the Carrie Underwood. I was trying to come up with a joke and I couldn't. So anyway, I brought 3 specific passages and a lot more, but 3 specific passages where it specifically talks about judging and not judging. And when people talk about, don't judge me, Jesus says don't judge me. This is kind of where that whole mindset comes from, all right? So the big passage that comes out of this whole conversation is Matthew 7, verses 1 through 5. And in that, we talked about this specific passage later on, Matthew 7, in a couple episodes ago, didn't we? Because this is coming out of the Sermon on the Mount.
Yes.
The woe to use?
Yes. This is also, I think, it's a parallel passage to the next one that you have on.
Yeah, they're both parallel passages. So we talked about this one recently. So Jesus was on the Sermon on the Mount, and he was teaching his disciples, and there's a bunch of other people there, and it comes out of Matthew 5, which is all about the Beatitudes, and Matthew 6, and then this is coming out into Matthew 7 right off the top. It says, do not judge so that you won't be judged. And many people put a period there.
Well, there is a period. It just goes on.
They period the rest of the Bible.
The transcribers put a period there. So let me rephrase that.
Right. So it says, do not judge so that you won't be judged. And again, these are all CSB. For with the judgment you use, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but don't notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your own eye, and look, there's a stinking log in your eye. Jesus said stinking. So there's a stinking log in your eye. Not really. You hypocrite. Take the log out of your own eye first, and then you can see clearly, and take the speck out of your brother's eye. And then, you're right, in a very similar passage, because they're, synoptic gospels, they kind of all have the same sources and whatnot. In Luke 6:37-42, it says, do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure pressed down, shaken together, and run over will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured back to you. He also told them this parable. Can the blind guide the blind? Won't they both fall into a pit? A disciple is not above his teacher, but everyone who is fully trained will be like his teacher. Why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but don't notice the log in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, brother, let me take the speck out of the speck that is in your eye, when you yourself don't even see the log in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the log out of your eye, and then you will see clearly to take out the speck in your brother's eye.
So real quick question.
Okay.
Pastor Mark.
Uh-oh.
Are these parallel passages referring to we shouldn't judge, or are they saying something else?
How about we get into that in a minute?
Dang it. I was trying to goad you, and I'm like, yeah.
I know. So we are going to get into that. I mean, flat out, we have to admit that it says, do not judge, and you will not be judged. You know, that's what Jesus says, is do not judge and you will not be judged. Do not condemn and you will not be condemned. But the question is what is Jesus actually communicating there? Is he saying don't judge, or is he saying do judge, but expect the same judgment to be used against you as well?
All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to stop you.
No, that's good.
I was trying to goad you a little bit into going a little
I love
deeper
it.
into
And
that
so we're
passage.
going to jump into James, which it seems like we've been in James a lot in this podcast
It's been
as well.
awesome. I
and I'm
love
here for
James.
it. So in James 4, verses 1 through 12, this is a big Bible passage, and I got some other bigger ones coming along here in a minute. So James 4, verses 1 through 12 says this: What is the source of wars and fights among you? Don't they come from the cravings that are at war within you? You desire and you don't have. You murder and covet and cannot obtain. You fight in war. You do not have because you do not ask. And you ask and don't receive because you ask wrongly, so that you may spend it on your own desires for pleasure. Adulteresses, do you know that friendship with the world is hostility towards God? So whoever wants to be the world's friend becomes God's enemy. Or do you think it's without reason the scripture says that the Spirit he has caused to live in us yearns jealously? But he gives greater grace. Therefore, he says, God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Therefore, submit to God, but resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he'll draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded people. Be miserable, and mourn, and weep. Your laughter must change the mourning, and your joy to sorrow. Humble yourself before the Lord, he will exalt you. And this is where the next verse comes in. Don't criticize one another, brothers. He who criticizes a brother or judges his brother criticizes the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but now you are a judge. There is one lawgiver and one judge who is able to save and to destroy. But who are you to judge your neighbor? So, and the reason why I wanted to bring that passage in, I know there's a whole lot to break down on that James 4. We're not going to look at the big thing, but basically what it's saying inside of that is the fact of all the issues that we have in life is because we have issues inside of ourselves that we have to deal with, which is kind of talking about the speck in their eye, but there was a big old log in your eye.
Sure.
But flat out, it says, do not criticize one another, brothers. He who criticizes a brother or judges his brother criticizes the law, and therefore you're criticizing God, and now you are the judge, and now that's not the place you are supposed to be. So, you know, right off the bat, off of preliminary, just simple reading, right here we see don't judge. Don't criticize. Don't do it.
Well, but there's...
So how do we handle these passages? And that's, bam, that's where the question goes, homie. So this is where I get to drink my coffee.
I'm going to jump into the James 4, 1 through 12 first, right? Because we just read it in context. But people don't always...
I always want to bring a lot of verses to context.
People don't always hear it in context, right? They forget what was at the beginning. So what was the very first verse? What did it say, Mark? Verse 1, James 4.
What is the source of wars and fights among you?
Okay. Keep going.
Don't they come from the cravings that are at war within you?
Your desires and do not have. You desire and do not have. I'm sorry. So if you take those little bit right there, right, and you work your way down of all the stuff, the wars and the fighting among you are coming from cravings within you because you have to do this and you don't do that. You do this and you don't do that, and it goes on and on. And then it says you should humble yourself and don't then it goes into don't criticize. So reading this in context would say that the reason why James is putting this don't criticize one another, brothers, is not necessarily because he doesn't want you to criticize or judge it, but because they're doing it from the wrong motives.
Okay.
there's a motive here, right? The motive comes from their
Your
cravings.
house sounds like it's falling apart.
Well,
up
that's
there.
because the people are right above us. But it comes from their cravings and their motives, which is why there's a war within you. You desire and do not have. You murder and you covet and you cannot obtain, right? So these are the things that are evil desires within us. And that's why we're being told, don't you judge them, because look at how you are right now.
Right, and the humility part comes right before that too, where it's talking about the fact of humble yourself before God. And if you are humbling yourself before God, you can't be a judge if you're humbling yourself.
Cleanse your hands, sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded people.
Right, and when the Bible talks about humbling yourself, the mental picture you almost have to have is bringing yourself under,
prostrate.
You know, and,
that's
and
what
so
I think.
Like if you're humbling yourself, and this is what I think of, like when someone's actually seeking after repentance, you see like in the Les Mis, right?
Right.
So in Les Mis, and I might be getting some facts wrong, but
I've never seen it. So
okay, so I can say whatever I want, and we're good.
Whatever you want.
Hugh Jackman's character, you know, after he's found out he's stolen the gold from the church, and he has this big, you know, musical number and come to, for lack of a better word, come to God moment. He like basically like falls down and humbles himself underneath the love of what the church showed to him. And because they were like, is this the thief that stole your stuff? And the church was like, no, we gave it to him. We gave it all to him. And it was a moment for him of pure humility of what they did for me. How could I not humble myself underneath them? Right. And you see that all the time when it comes to, you know, humbling yourself is to make low and to honestly expose yourself too. Like,
well, I think the Greek term, it means to make yourself lowly or prostrate, right? Right. To where you're like face flat on the floor.
Right. And the reason for that is you're showing your neck to the king too.
Yes.
Like you are literally at the mercy of whoever you are showing humility
when
to.
you're face down, especially in the biblical culture in which we find we're reading in, it is a culture where you have to be kind of upright to defend yourself. But if you're prostrate lying on the floor, there's zero defense. Right. You lay yourself, not boldly, but humbly before whatever, and are going to expect whatever results are given.
Right. And so when we look at this James 4 passage where it talks about, it's literally saying, humble yourself before the Lord and he will exalt you. This is talking about you taking care of yourself. Right. Making sure you're in the right standing with God, making sure you humble yourself, because, you know, if you and I let ourselves do what we want to do, we're constantly going to be at war with each other. We're constantly going to be at war with our wives. We're constantly going to be at war with our kids. Well, and there's a power struggle. And this is where the biggest struggle with our family comes in. With the power struggles I have with my kids. So my kids want to be the boss. Daddy's the boss. Right. And then all of a sudden there's conflict.
Or struggles with your spouse of, I want to do it this way. And they're not on board with the way you want to do it. They want toilet paper. They want it under, you want it over, right? I mean, there's a power struggle like, why can't you? And it's like, no, humble yourself. Just let it just give in. It's not a big deal. You don't have to be all like, I can't, they're so stupid. Like, that's the judging, I think, and criticizing, I think, is like, I can't believe they're so stupid. Don't they know that the drawing says it's supposed to be over, not under, and they want to put it under? You know what I mean? And I think that's what he said. Stop that. That's the war. The war within yourself. You're causing yourself because you're doing this. Don't do that. Humble yourself.
So, come out of this passage then where it says, don't criticize one another. He who criticizes or judges criticizes the law and judges them.
Sure.
However, goodness, coffee got stuck in my throat.
Dang it.
But then when you go back up to Matthew, it just says, do not judge so you won't be judged. Right. But then it says, for the judgment you used, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Continue on in Luke, it says, do not judge, do not condemn, but instead forgive. However, at the same time, it doesn't just say, don't judge. It just says you will be judged by the same level of judgment.
Isn't right after this passage, correct me if I'm wrong, I might be wrong on this one, but I thought right after this passage, isn't it the parable of the servant who was forgiven many talents? Uh-huh. And what if we look at that parable and compare it to this, right? Because it was all one sermon, basically, right? If we look at it that way. So he goes right into that. And what was it? It was that the king showed mercy, and then the servant went out and like required even less from the other servant, and then all that stuff. Was it that one or was it not?
That's later on.
Okay, I wasn't 100% sure. So what's right after this one?
Right before is the kingdom over everything conversation, where but seek first the kingdom, and all these things will be added to you.
Sure, yep.
Then it talks about do not judge. And then this is where it gets interesting. So, and I brought this up too, where it's like, if we have the conversation of, I have 6 things to keep in mind.
How many?
When it comes to judging others, 6.
Good job.
6. There's 6.
6.
I can say that because I don't have a TH to the end.
And then you just add a TH at the end.
6.
There you go. Perfect. You got it.
Yeah, I sound like a snake now. But, when you keep reading in Matthew 7, and we like to stop where it's like, hypocrites, take out the beam out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly and take the splinter out of your brother's eye.
Right.
But then all of a sudden it goes, don't give what is holy to dogs or toss your pearls before pigs, or they will trample them under their feet, turn interior to pieces. Like, he literally just called people dogs and pigs.
So he just judged, right?
That's the worst slam you could give to somebody.
Right.
Well, outside of being called a Samaritan.
So it goes right to it's like a whiplash moment.
Well, exactly.
So that's why I don't think.
So what does that mean, though?
What
When the fact
he's
that
saying-
Jesus says, don't judge, but then all of a sudden he's like, don't give the what's holy to pigs and to dogs. And then it talks about ask and be given you, seek and you'll find, knock and it'll be open to you.
All right. Yeah.
Enter the kingdom.
So yeah, we're in the kingdom principles at that point. So what I take from this is that it's not necessarily that you can't judge, right? Mm-hmm. It says, do not judge so that you won't be judged. It's saying you don't have to judge. One, we only have, well, I won't go into that point yet. We'll talk about that later. But this is more of a similar passage of like James 4, right? Okay. Where it's you need to humble yourself, right? You need to go take the log out of your own eye before you can even attempt to help a brother take a speck out of theirs. It's a self-examination moment, right? How can I, as a porn addict, cheating on my wife, murderer, come up to you and go, hey, listen, you were pretty unkind to that person. I think Jesus is saying, hey, self-reflect, right? And then this is where Galatians 6:1 comes in, right? When you're restoring a brother who's fallen to sin, do so in gentleness and love so that you yourself will not fall into the same temptation. This is what I believe that passage Paul bases it off of is right here.
And it's not sayings. Talking about, don't judge so you won't be judged. If your brother's wearing yellow and you're wearing blue, right. It's the fact of, no, there's a speck in your brother's eye, which is something that's not okay. It needs to come out. And the intention of getting that speck out is not bad. It's a good intention.
It comes back to attitude though, right?
Right. Yep. Because you got your own issues. And a lot of this, Jesus was doing like the woe to you, and he even says, you hypocrites.
Right.
And generally when he's using the word hypocrite, he's talking to the religious leaders too.
Oh yeah, most of the
so
time.
when I think of a religious leader, again, I can only speak out of the world that I came from, right? And hearing a lot of stories where you hear of these pastors who will call people. Okay, good example, right? So that Hillsong documentary, right, with Carl Lentz, where Carl Lentz was calling people and basically saying like, oh, you shouldn't do this and you can't do that, and then all of a sudden you look at his life and you're like, who are you?
Right.
To say this. And it's like, you're not worried about yourself. You're worried about everybody else and everyone else's opinion and feeling of you. Oh, snap, right. I'm preaching to myself. But, when we call someone out for what's going on in their life, I think you're right. It goes back to what is the purpose we're trying to do? Are we trying to help get the speck out of the brother's eye? Or are we trying to, for lack of a better word, criticize them for having the speck? I think that's part of it because, and again, maybe this is me reading into the text a little bit too much. I don't know. Because you're not criticizing. You're not condemning. It's more of, I'm trying to help you. I'm not trying to be like, dang. And I think that's more so it's like, you know what, Fuller? I can't believe you keep eating all that junky fast food and putting that in your body. Like, who are you to do that? And if I'm criticizing you for your lifestyle and those choices, right. Which again, are they good? Well, probably not. I mean, obviously, if you're pounding Big Macs all day long, it ain't good for you. It ain't good for the arteries.
I can't afford it.
That's also true. No, you could afford it if it was just for you, but you also have Janelle and the 3 kids.
No, not eating out all the time. I couldn't.
But it's the fact of if I'm trying to say, hey, this is what's going on, but you look at me and you're like, are you kidding, Mark? Do you see what's going on in your own life? Like, who are you to do that? And
I think that ties right into the story of the woman caught in adultery, right? Where they drug her out before Jesus and said, this is what we did. The law says we should do this. What do you say? And he's like, he who was without sin cast first stone. Why? Because we all have sin, right? And they came about it in a judgmental way.
Right, and they weren't trying to restore this woman. They literally, because back then, adultery wasn't just the woman would be killed, but to be caught in adultery, he had to have been a married man, and he would have been dragged in front of everybody too.
Right.
And they're like, where's the dude? And they literally the Bible says they grabbed her, threw her in front of Jesus, like, homegirl probably just had the sheet on her. Right. Like, they caught her in the, which is a setup.
If that, right.
Like, they wanted to get this person who, granted, Jesus never said, oh, what you're doing is fine. Don't worry about it. He said, go and sin no more.
Right.
But it's the fact of they were trying to use this to trap Jesus, but
Yes.
also to condemn this woman rather than be like, hey, we know you're doing this.
It was a double judgment moment, right?
Right. Like I think of Joseph, right? We read that Joseph, being a fair and righteous man, sought to put Mary away quietly because he didn't want her to die. He was like, I'm not judging you for it. I just don't know what's going on, but I love you too much to do it. So we're going to try to do this right.
And even knowing that if he puts her away quietly, right, and doesn't bring it out, so now he doesn't get this dowry back. All this money he has to give to the family to be able to marry Mary. He loses that, right? He loses a big.
I never thought of that.
Big
I
chunk
never thought of that.
Of his finances or whatever he had to do for a dowry. He does not get that back in that culture because she was not caught in the act of adultery, and he didn't accuse her of that. So if putting it away quietly, he took a significant loss to do that. So yeah, and that's why he was counted as a righteous man, and that's exactly what the angel said. So,
right.
But anyways,
and so let's lean into that. So it's not quite time to land the plane yet, but we're getting really close.
We've totally we threw three verses.
The deal, though. We don't even need to bring my notes. This is a great conversation.
Right.
I just don't want to forget these things because.
No, yeah, and I want to make sure we touch the stuff. I mean, you put a lot of work into this. I want to touch it.
Aw, thank you. So here are the 7 - 1 things to keep in mind when it comes to judging others.
Just here, tag team me in. Here's the 6 things, but it's 6. It's not 6. We haven't got on the 6th one. You tag me and I'll say it for you.
So the 6 things. Number 1 is Jesus never said don't judge and that's it, but more so be careful and thoughtful in how you judge.
Right.
Because we keep reading Matthew 5:6. Don't give what is holy to dogs, or toss your pearls before pigs, or they will trample them under their feet. And it's more, and I was trying to read what that passage was talking about without having a whole sermon about it.
Well, let me go grab my commentaries over here. I'm just
But basically, I was like, okay, let's take everything I read and boil it down to a sentence. And what most people even say is it simply means that we are to use wisdom and discretion, but hypocritical judgment is not okay. And this is, taking or talking in the context of relationships too.
Yeah.
So, it's talking about brothers, right?
Right.
And so this is people who you are in relationship with, and you're using wisdom and discretion, because if you're trying to help someone who, and this is where it gets kind of hard, where it's like, I'm not saying like someone who isn't trying to be help worthy, but it talks about, using wisdom, and don't cast your pearls before the swine or the dogs, or else they won't just destroy what you gave them. They will destroy you.
Right.
So you have to use wisdom and discretion in how you do this. But Jesus never says just don't judge and move on.
Right.
It's more the fact of what's the purpose behind what you're trying to do.
The motive.
Right.
Goes
And
back
so
to the motive.
and to continue on with that, if we read in John 7 verse 24, Jesus says, don't judge according to appearance, but judge with righteous judgment. So Jesus is saying that, yes, it's okay to judge. It's okay to have righteous judgment, but don't just judge according to appearance. So don't just judge what you see.
Again, back to motives.
Right. And a lot of times, I think this is where I have a big struggle, because I'm very quick to judge based off appearance.
Sure.
And I think this is some of the call. I mean, I don't want to get too political, but I think this is some of the call of what Black Lives Matter was trying to pull out, as a fact of you can't just judge someone just because they're black.
Right.
And we both agree with that statement.
Of course, 100%. And I think the Bible agrees with that statement, obviously. And I think that most Christians, right, that read Scripture would agree with that statement.
And because people all the time say, like, you can't judge me, you don't know me.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people say, which we'll get to that statement in a second, because that's another silver bullet people try to do.
Don't judge
me.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
And then me as a graphic designer goes, then why on earth did I spend all that time making that book cover? That's what...
Because it catches the eye.
Right. And so a book cover isn't bad, but a book cover at the same time, this is where the difference is a book cover is not to a book, but a book cover, when you look at a person, that's like what clothes they're wearing. Right. But, I digress.
Anyways.
But anywho, so when you read that passage, though, in John 7:24, to kind of put it into context, this comes directly through John 7:24. That was a direct quote, that passage.
Right.
Do not judge according to appearance, but judge with righteous judgment. After Jesus healed the man on a Sabbath, the religious leaders were furious and tried to pin it on the fact that Jesus hated Moses' law and had a demon inside of him. And Jesus responded with, well, okay, so you're cool with circumcising a boy on the Sabbath, and that doesn't break the Sabbath, because you are bringing him in, theoretically, you're doing surgery and letting him heal so he can become a Jew, set aside Jew. I heal a man on the Sabbath, make his whole body good, yet you think that since I did it on the Sabbath,
I got a demon.
Therefore, I broke the law.
Right.
And the Pharisees judged him according to their standard and what they had of what their belief of truth was, not with the mindset of love and truth. Because if you would look at it and like, okay, so what's the Sabbath? The idea of Sabbath is to keep it holy, is to set aside for God and for rest and enjoying him. Jesus just provided rest to this man.
Right.
Because back in the culture, it wasn't just like, oh, he's just I think of my daughter, right? You know, we're pushing her.
Which one?
My oldest one.
Okay.
Ava Grace. So we're pushing her around in a wheelchair, and she's not lame. Like, she can walk. But when Beth got her,
right,
she had a drop foot, and she has cerebral
palsy. I was going to
palsy.
say she can walk, but she can't walk a long distances.
Right. But in ancient culture, she would have just been thrown on the street and not even cared about.
She would have been the lame person at the pool of Bethsaida.
Honestly, probably, if she never got the health of what she was dealing with her entire life. But there's also people who are even worse than that. If I would look at Ava and be like, you know, not me, but like Jesus made her whole. We get to celebrate the goodness of God of what just happened, and the fact that she finally physically found rest. And the Pharisees like, hold up, y'all played a modern worship song instead of a hymn at church.
Can't believe
y'all. It's like, wait, it's like the same people who walk into church. Oh wait, no, you can't wear that. Here's a tie for you. Here's a dress.
To the gallows.
Oh, you brought the wrong translation. Oh, this was for me. Right. I lost sword drills because I had used an NIV and not a King James.
Dang it!
Like it's that standard of that's not righteous judgment. So what does righteous judgment means? And it means to judge according to a standard and to judge according to what's right.
Right.
You know, so so Jesus says, but judge with righteous judgment. We like righteous judgment.
Yes.
You know, we call for that. We call for that in today's court hearings. Like, you know, like the whole thing with Johnny Depp and
Amber Heard. I
just call her Lion Amber. So with those,
that's judgment.
Nah, bro, that is righteous judgment. That is facts. Like, and that's the thing is like I'm watching interviews and she's like, oh, everyone's judging. Like, she doesn't say judging me, but all these different things. And we all look at her and we're like, yeah, we do, because it's like what we see is factual. And again, are we coming from right motives or not? But at the same time, in that courtroom, so many people are calling for justice.
Sure.
For Depp or justice for Amber if people were on that
side. The whole
side.
thing was just sad. Yeah,
it really is. Sad. But, you know, we see that with the traumas of the shootings. We see that with the widows and the orphans and foster care and all these different things. We want justice to be served.
Sure.
And that's not a bad thing, but we have to judge according to what is righteous judgment and not just what is our own personal motives behind. That's right, the vendetta of what are we trying to accomplish? Are we trying to build, which, you know, Neil, my counselor, says, are you trying to build your own kingdom, Mark? Or are you trying to, you know, be part of God's kingdom? I'm like, that's not cool. So, but anywho,
he called you out for false idol
all the time. And this is another Bible passage that Neil brings into our counseling sessions all the time is fruit root. And in Matthew 7, and this is the thing is he continuing, let's keep reading Matthew 7, because I was going to paraphrase, but let's just read it. How about that? So in Matthew 7, 15 through 20, if we continue reading after we read that, don't judge others, Jesus says, beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are raving wolves. Oh, no, you can't judge them.
Right.
You can't judge them. Jesus is like, no, they are raging wolves. Like, this is righteous judgment.
Right.
You'll recognize them by their fruits. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? In the same way, every good tree produces good fruit, but a bad tree produces bad fruit. A good tree can't produce bad fruit, and neither can a bad tree produce good fruit. Every tree that doesn't produce good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire, so you'll recognize them by their fruits. Now, this is talking about, you know, false teachers and prophets. And again, talking about the Pharisees at this time where it's like, you know, they say they're going to do all this, but do their actions back up what's supposedly inside their heart? Are they a bunch of whitewashed tombs?
Right.
And for us, I would say what this is saying is we know people what their motives are by their fruit of the lives of they're producing. Like if, like, you know, you see certain people with, you know, I always struggle, like when we're playing basketball or sports or whatnot, and you hear about those pastors who literally have to be uninvited from open gyms because of their bad attitudes, and they're screaming and they're yelling and this, that, and the other. Or you look at other people's lives and it's like, you say you're a Christian, but these are all the actions I'm seeing. And I just, are you okay? And I think this is where the judging of what we think of, don't judge them. They just doing their own thing, walking with Jesus. You know, the question is, what's the motive behind that? Are you trying to control them and make them look like you?
Right.
Or do you need to do some introspection and be like, okay, so am I judging them according to my own standard or God's standard? And do they need help?
Well, and I think that's the important thing to remember, right? Is that as a Christian, and I know I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but
Go for it, homie.
As a Christian, we're not supposed to hold people to our judgment. We're supposed to hold people to God's judgment and hold each other to God's judgment, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are the laws passed down from God, and we should hold each other accountable. That's part of the fruit, right? So one of the laws is, hey, have the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness, faithfulness,
gentleness, and
self-control. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, like, that's the law, and love others and love God. Like, that's the law. Okay, are you doing that, and how well are you doing that? Right, and that's the big thing that we got to continue to look at. And we're not saying anybody is perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all have faults. We're all growing. Marc could probably call out about 20 things that I do wrong easily, and probably off the top of his head. And I could probably call out one thing that Marc does wrong.
Talk about me love too much?
You love too much. No. No. So
I'm holding back a sneeze.
You sneeze too much now. No, but so that's, it's one of those things that we have to put into perspective of are we, like you said, are we holding them to something that is just a preference of ours? Or are we holding them to something that God has said and set forth through the apostles and through his word, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was it something that was instructed to us to follow? And did you get it? Did you let it go?
Yeah, I got it.
Let it fly.
I got it.
Let it fly.
There goes that. It was like a weird sneeze burp.
It's like a...
It was weird. It was really weird.
Anyways, let's hurry up.
Thanks for stalling me.
And run through the rest of this because we're at 50 minutes.
And here's the deal: is we've talked about all of these, but
Sure.
so I'll just hit the highlights of those, and we'll keep moving on.
Copy that.
So the number 4 thing we see should we judge others or not is the Bible says that we are to help brothers and sisters realize and stop sinning. Like that's what we're called to do as Christians, is to come alongside one another and help us stop sinning.
Oh, you got Galatians 6:1 in there. Good job.
But before we get into that, we're going back to James. We're going back to our brother James, James chapter number 5, verses 19 and 20. It says, "My brothers, if anyone among you strays from the truth and someone turns him back, he should know that whoever turns a sinner from the error of his ways will save his life from death and cover a multitude of sins." Galatians 6:1, "Brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in any wrongdoing, you who are spiritual should restore such a person with a gentle spirit, watching out for yourselves so you won't be tempted also."
Oh,
I love that one. Matthew 18:15, going back to Jesus, "If your brother sins against you, go and rebuke him in private. And if he listens, you have won your brother." Luke 17:1-4, Jesus said to his disciples, "Offenses will certainly come, but woe to the one they come through. It would be better for him if a millstone was hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea than for him to cause one of these little ones to stumble. Be on your guards, brother and sisters. If your brother sins, rebuke him. If he repents, forgive him. And if he sins against you 7 times in one day and comes back to you 7 times saying, 'I repent,' you must forgive him." So right off the bat, we see that if we find a brother or sister in sin, we are called to come alongside that person and help them stop sinning, which we'll come back to that in a second. The 5th one that I got is the gospel in and of itself is actually judgmental.
Oh, what?
I thought, yeah.
You mean the gospel is judging and offensive?
Yep, because it's saying that you are wrong and you are a sinner and you need to be saved in and outside yourself.
Right.
I mean, that's what the gospel is the fact of while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. All of sin and fallen short of the glory of God. There is nothing in and of ourselves that we can do to help us come back to God. No one seeks God. No one goes after righteousness. But while we were dead in our trespasses and sin, Christ made us alive through Him.
You sound like you're quoting a lot of Romans.
I am quoting a lot of Romans right there, and that's the gospel.
No, it is.
I mean, for whom He did call, He also did predestine to be called the sons and daughters of God.
Sure.
You know, like that's what the gospel message is, and we're called to come back into the family of God and be adopted as His own. And that's what the good news is.
Right.
Like the gospel is good news. The gospel isn't condemning anybody.
It's the kingdom on earth.
Right. And the thing is, like people are like, God, now the gospel, I guess I contradict myself a little bit. Like, is the gospel actually judgmental? Well, no, God judges, but we have the ability and the good news comes to us in the form of Jesus.
Look at this perspective, right?
Okay.
Is the Bible judgmental, or are we already judged because we have are in sin, and it's showing us, hey, you have already been judged, but here's a lifeline.
Well, the Bible says that's the purpose of the law. That's what Paul says. The purpose of the law is to call us out.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the entire Bible, right? We already stand, whether you read the Bible and believe it or don't read the Bible and don't believe it, you've already been judged. Guilty.
Right.
We are all guilty.
And to bring it all back, though, what's the purpose of everything that we are supposed to do? And I think this is where the whole judging things come up, is so many times Christians do judge outsiders. So, like, I think of people like Westboro Baptists who are outside of, like, military people's funerals, LGBTQ events, different churches, and they're like, God hates fags and
Mars
this,
Hill,
that, and the other. Like, they ain't trying to restore nobody.
Right.
That is judging and condemnation.
But what's your sixth point?
It's our purpose of judging should be to restore, not condemn.
You like how I tagged that?
I like that. Thank you. Thank you. I'm awkward because my mic is right in a very awkward spot to reach you. So there you go.
All right. Here, there's set. There you go.
If you're watching YouTube, you saw what just happened. But, at the end of the day, we're not called to judge. We're called to come alongside our brothers and sisters and to continue pushing each other towards all thing in faith and godliness.
Right.
I brought the entire chapter of 2 Corinthians 5.
Back and read
and I don't know if you want me to read that whole thing.
Go ahead and open your pause this right now. Read 2 Corinthians chapter 5, and then we'll pick that conversation back up. Ready? Pause. Unpause. There we go.
Okay,
all right.
So we're not reading it?
Well, you can read it if you want. I was just trying to help people. I mean, we're already at almost an hour, so.
That's just it.
And you've got a lot left.
Yeah, so let's just pass that. So read 2 Corinthians. How about that? Read 2 Corinthians 5 for your quiet time today.
Yes.
So if you haven't done nothing, read 2 Corinthians 5 because it talks about the purpose of our calling each other out is for reconciliation purposes and where we get that. So here's the question then. Okay, so when is judging people wrong? When is the wrong time to judge people? I got all of these. We're just going to burn through them.
All right, go for it. I'm going to sit in silence.
Okay, that sounds good. So these all come directly from an article called "What Does the Bible Mean When It Says Do Not Judge" from gotquestions.org. So this is not original thoughts. This is legit copy paste from them.
No problem.
When is judging people wrong? Superficial judgment is wrong, which means passing judgment on someone based solely on appearances is sinful. It is foolish to jump to conclusions before investigating the facts, which comes from Proverbs 18:13. Simon the Pharisee passed judgment on a woman based on her appearance and reputation, but he could not see that the woman had already been forgiven. Simon thus, you like that? Thus drew Jesus' rebuke for his unrighteous judgment, which is the person who came and washed Jesus' feet.
Right.
Another one is hypocritical judgment is wrong. Jesus' command not to judge others is preceded by comparisons to hypocrites and followed by a warning against hypocrisy. When we point out the sin of others while we ourselves commit the same sin, we actually condemn ourselves. Number 3, harsh, unforgiving judgment is wrong. We are always to be gentle towards everyone, Titus 3:2. It is merciful who will be shown mercy. And Jesus warned, in the same way that you judge others, you will also be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Number 4, self-righteous judgment is wrong. We are called to humility, and God, quote, opposes the proud. The Pharisee in Jesus' parable of the Pharisee and the tax collector was confident in his own righteousness, and from that proud position, judged the publican. However, God sees the heart and refused to forgive the Pharisee's sin. Untrue judgment is wrong. This is number 5. The Bible clearly forbids bearing false witness. And Titus 3:2 again, slander no one. These next 2 paragraphs are also from that same article. It says Christians are often accused of quote unquote judging or intolerance when they speak out against sin, but opposing sin is not wrong. Holding aloft the standard of righteousness naturally defines unrighteousness and draws the sling and arrows on those who choose sin over godliness. John the Baptist incurred the ire of Herodias when he spoke out against her adultery with Herod. She eventually silenced John, but she could not silence the truth. Believers also warned against judging others unfairly or unrighteously, but Jesus commends right judgment. We are to be discerning. We are to preach the whole counsel of God, including the Bible's teaching on sin. We are to gently confront erring brothers or sisters in Christ. We are to practice church discipline, and we are to speak the truth in love.
Mic drop. That was a great article.
I loved it, man. I read through that. I'm like, I got to copy and paste.
That's going to be in the show notes, by the way, so if you want to read the full article. But
yeah,
that
and
was
there's a
awesome.
video that goes along with it, too. And so when it comes to judging others, are we called to judge others? we're not called to condemn others. We're called to come alongside our brothers and sisters in order to, for lack of a better word, restore a person.
Sure.
And this is the thing too, like, so many times it seems like when people are like, well, don't judge me and this, that, the other, generally it has to do with sin, it feels like. And
Sure.
so when someone is actively sinning and they know they're sinning and they call themselves a brother and sister, that's when, yes, we need to say, no, what you're doing is not right.
Sure.
Which is honestly part of my story when it comes to, my ex, in terms of that. People were calling out for sin, and then church discipline had happened, all these things that had happened. But if you ask the other party, they have a whole different other side of the story.
Yeah, it was all based for reconciliation. It wasn't
because we just wanted to X and axe somebody off. But at the same time, we have to protect the people under our care who are still dealing with the flag. But I'm thinking of like, with this conversation, around someone who is actively sinning, and if we speak the truth in love and gently come alongside and seek to restore, not just rebuke, that's all we're called to do. God will handle the rest. But I think the biggest question that people might be sitting here asking the question is, okay, so when it comes to, women rights, when it comes to like abortion, when it comes to LGBTQ plus rights, when it comes to any other topic that Christians are accused of judging the other side, how do we mentally handle that conversation? I think that's where the rubber meets the road with this conversation.
Well, yeah, I mean, so I think you had 3 questions you wanted to cover, right? And I think this is how we got to split it.
Okay.
We're going to have to split that statement up, right?
And we'll try to go quickly through them.
Yeah, so there's, can Christians judge unbelievers? Can Christians judge believers? And is accountability in judging the same or different? I think that question could be answered if we answered these 3 questions that you have.
All right, go for it. I'm going to drink my coffee now.
So, can Christians judge unbelievers? They don't have to.
Okay.
Because unbelievers have already been judged.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we can show them the get out of jail free card, and they can either choose to accept that get out of jail free card or accept the judgment, right? That's their choice. But it should be done in the same manner in which we, quote unquote, judge believers, right? In gentleness and love, wishing to restore. We're wishing to bring them to Christ. So when we show them where they have already been judged, right? It should be not with the intent purpose of us judging, but showing the judgment that's already upon them. And in love saying, listen, but there's a way out. Somebody paid the penalty for you. And all you have to do is accept the free gift.
So with this conversation then, specifically with, let's just lean into it.
Sure.
We've been skating around it. With the LGBTQ conversation, specifically with, there's other churches who are totally open and affirming, right? Like a lot of United Methodists, a lot of Episcopalians, a lot of those historic denominations and just non-denom churches.
Yeah.
With the LGBTQ conversation where we say, no, this is not how God designed the world to be.
Yes.
How do we do that in such a way where if we, I don't know how to say it, because like us as Christians, if we say, no, if you're gay, you can't be Christian, or if you're living in that homosexual lifestyle, you can't be. Or
it's perfect.
All
right?
these different things. So how can we do that when they're like, well, you just got to stop judging people, man. God's their judge.
Well, it's perfect, right? Because they always go, well, this isn't how God designed it. And they go, well, I was born this way. And you go, yeah. And I was born as a hateful person that could have been a murderer or a rapist or anything else. But you know what? God kept me from that path, and God has saved me from my sin.
But I think that gets hairy though, because then people will attach their sexuality almost the same as they attach their ethnicity. Like we're both white by birth. We didn't choose to be white. We're born white.
Okay, but what I'm saying is their identity is they're identifying with a sin.
Right.
We've talked about this, finding your identity in Christ, right? We've had these conversations on past podcasts. That one, the our Christian and gay conversation, we talked about it. The transgenderism conversation, we talked about this, right?
Yep,
when you identify as a sin, you're right. You were born into sin, right? So call it what you want. I was born into sin. You were born into sin, and Caitlyn Jenner was born into sin. Bruce, whatever you want to call it. So, yes, you're right. You were born this way because you were born into sin just like the rest of humanity. But tell you what, Christ paid that penalty, and all you have to do is turn from your wicked ways and follow him.
So, is this something that we as Christians are just going to have to be okay with, of being accused of being judgmental?
Well, I think I
and
can't.
then letting our actions.
I can't remember which scripture it was, right? But we are going to be hated. We've been told that. Christ said that before he ever left this earth 2,000 years ago. He goes, they will hate you because they, what? Hate me.
Well, we read that one verse today where it's about the fact of, well, if you're friends with the world, if you're
enemies to God,
you're enemies to God, which I'm like,
and it's true. And it's true, right?
Hard.
Why? Because the world hates us because we stand for God's righteousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the world wants to live and identify with sin because they think that everything they're doing is okay. And so they're going to think us as the crazy religious, extreme right wing, even though we may not be.
Well, right. And that's
but
what
that's
we're
what
often
you're all
accused of,
like.
right.
Yeah. So, they're already judging us, right? Even though they go, you can't judge me. No one can judge me. They're judging you hardcore. And so what are you going to do? Oh, I'm rubber, you're glue. You can't judge me either. No, you're going to say, you know what? I understand your frustration. I understand your hurt. I understand your anger because I had all them things too before Jesus saved me. I get it too. I didn't want to give up my sin either. I still struggle with my sin every day, just like probably you will the rest of your life if you choose to follow Christ. Guarantee you're going to struggle with your sin. Guarantee it. Because every Christian throughout history has struggled with their sin on a day-to-day basis till they end up in glory with Jesus.
It's true.
So I think that going back to it, can you judge unbelievers? No, but you can show them Christ. Can Christians judge believers? It's not judging. It's exactly what we talked about. You're saying, hey, listen, you're not following the standards of Christ, and we want to restore you to the fellowship of Christ, mm-hmm. right? This is not for my pleasure. It's to help you, right? It's for your relationship. We're trying to help you, and you can either accept that or reject that, right? So what I'm doing is not trying to come down on you. I'm trying to say, hey, listen, this doesn't follow Christ, and this is what you need to do to be back in right fellowship with him. And is accountability and judgment the same or different? I believe, and you could disagree with me, that's right, because we're defining these on our own opinion terms, right? But I don't think they are the same. I think accountability is exactly what we just talked about. We didn't make the laws. We're kind of like the cops. We're enforcing the laws, right? We're holding the cop does not.
He doesn't create the laws. His job is to uphold it.
Yeah, he upholds the law, which is keeping people accountable, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, you speed, I'm going to keep you accouable. You sped.
You can be mad that I gave you a ticket, but bro, you shouldn't have been speeding.
Listen, the law says this. You can't speed.
I say that to my kid. You ever said that to your kid? Like maybe when they're older, like, oh, like why are you getting in trouble? Like, well, if you just wouldn't do it, you wouldn't be in trouble.
Yeah, all the time. Well, Noelle's like, I can't. I never get anything. My life is horrible. And it's like, look, if you just stop disobeying, it'd be all good. You'd be able to do all these things.
I mean, Beth and I haven't full circle this, but I'll say to the kids sometimes, I'm like, I don't know if this is the right thing to say to them, but I'll say, like, if you would just listen, your life would be better.
So, but
I say that a lot to the kids.
Come full circle. So would our lives if we obeyed God.
100%. And I thought that, and Scott and I would have conversations as pastors.
Right.
Like, if you would just, and I don't want to say just listen to what I say. It's more the fact of if you would just listen to sound advice and wise counsel, your life would be better.
So much better. So much better.
But I think this is where it gets different is when it comes to accountability. I'm thinking with, smoking, with drinking, with music, with dress. Like, there's certain things where is it right or is it wrong? And that's where it's like, okay, well, you might have one standard of preference. I might have another, and certain things of where exactly do we draw the line? So what is versus like if someone's calling like, well, hey, I can't believe you were drinking this, that, and the other. And it's like, oh, the Bible doesn't say it. So you're holding me to your own standard. Is that what that is? Or is it?
Is it though? Like, so there are standards, right?
That's where I start to struggle a little bit.
Especially
what is right? What is
okay.
not.
So you bring up drinking. So there are standards with drinking, right? It says not to drink excessive or hard alcohol or so. I forget exactly how it phrases it, but it's basically talking about like hard liquor, like hardcore liquor. And then it says not to get drunk and don't be drunk with wine and all these other things, right? Spirits, that's what it calls it, the King Jimmy. It says do not be drunk with spirits.
And it's like
which is a hard liquor.
What does Proverbs say? Where it's like the eye of the, it talks about like the eye of the wine or whatever,
sure.
Like, or something about the wine. But basically it's like don't be controlled by it.
Yeah, so there are standards, right? Now, to say, Mark, you can't ever drink a sip of wine or a sip of beer, or you can't do it, like you can't even have a drop on your tongue or you're sinning. Okay, now we're into the preference for where I'm right. So there are standards.
Well, I agree.
And so I would say if somebody came up and said, Mark, drinking's wrong, I can't believe it. You'd go, okay, well, let's look at the scripture together, right? Mm-hmm. As a Christian, right? I would want to encourage that. So let's look at what the truth is. and let's find out what the standard is. And then we can debate if we want personal preference after that. Now, I think we also need to be careful because, like we've talked about in the past, some brothers struggle with that. We don't want to be a stumbling block.
Like in something like if you can have accountability in everything. Like, when I was working out with Devin all the time, the accountability is I was going to be at the gym 3 times a week. And if I wasn't, he had full permission to come drag my butt downstairs and throw me in the car and let's go. Because that's the standard that I asked him to help me uphold.
Sure.
And so I think there's something to be said about that, where it's like, if you and I are like, hey, I'm struggling with
relationships,
like I'm struggling with this, so can you help me come alongside of it? That's where the brotherhood comes in.
Yes, definitely. But we also have to be careful. Not that we should not. We should know the audience in which we speak to, right? And that's what I'm going to say. Like, if you don't know okay, I'll take it for social media. I'm very careful of what I post with social media because I may think it's okay, but I don't know how all of our listeners feel about it.
And I feel the same. I mean, I accidentally sometimes will post an Instagram reel and it bleeps out a word, so it sounds like I say something different when I did not cuss at all.
That was funny.
Go to my personal account, the Father's Day post, it goes beep. I'm like, oh, they thought I just cussed.
It sounds so bad, but it's funny.
I didn't cuss at all.
But that's what I'm like. So I be careful because I don't want to become a stumbling block for somebody who may struggle with something, right?
Right.
That I feel a freedom to do, but it may not be a freedom for them.
But don't use your freedom as a way to...
Exactly. And so with social media, with the nature of technology that we have, it could be so easy to be a stumbling block. And that's the thing, right? So I hear so many people be like, well, I can't know everybody. I can't control everybody, blah, blah, blah. And that's the excuse. And it's like, okay, is that really love or is that selfishness, right? Do you just want to do what you want to do because you want to do it? Or do you really love the person and you're trying to help them, right? And I guess that's, for me, where I try to stand. And this is just me, right? I'm not saying anybody else. This is just me. That when I am posting stuff or I'm saying stuff or I'm going to go do this, I try to do it in such a way that it's like, if I don't know my audience, I'm going to be kind of reserved and a lot more conservative, right, of what I say. And not like conservative like, hey, hold up your guns and hold on to the Constitution, conservative. I'm talking about like I'm more reserved, right, in what I speak. Even in my theology, if it doesn't line up with the creeds, I won't even speak that most of the time until I get to know my audience. And then once I know my audience, okay, now I can get into some of my personal preference that's outside of the biblical standard.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
and that's and you and I think we both very much agree on that. It's more of, if someone feels a strong, and this is where I guess I struggle with as a pastor who, I had to speak into certain people's lives. It was always the question of, should I speak into that or not? And there were so many times when I was like, it's not worth the fight to speak into that or in that manner.
Right.
And because like, there'd be so many times where it's like, people would post things online. It's like, I never did. I can comment on that right now, or I don't have to. I can handle it in person, have a good conversation.
Christianity behind the screen.
But at the same time, the Bible does say, don't answer a fool according to their folly, lest you become like dragged down. But also answer a fool according to their folly. So
back to back, it says that.
And so there'll be times when someone will post online something about, like, oh, Christians, they talk about anti-abortion. I don't see none of them adopting them. I have no problem going, I adopted 5.
Right. Well, that's
because I'm
really
proving you wrong.
Right.
And it's not like I'm trying to.
But it's just like,
I'm not trying to fight. It's more the fact of, you look wise until there's a counter argument of like, oh, yeah, that's just you though, Mark. No, it's not just me.
So to go along with that, I had a friend that I went to homeschool drama camp with, who posted a thing about the rainbow and the God's promise during Pride Month, right?
Right.
And immediately one of our other friends who we were in drama camp with was like, oh, that's nice that she's not a Christian anymore. That's nice that you Christians can post that and try to do that and sort of judgment on that. What about the SBC and the 205 page? And it's like,
that's a straw man argument, to be honest with you. It's a straw man.
So I wanted to say, that's exactly what I say. I want to say, well, there's sinners everywhere, including the LGBTQ. Let's look at how many sexual predators in that community.
Right. It's actually a logical fallacy.
But I refrained from it, right, because of what we talked about in our Christianity Behind the Screen episode of, is it always worth it to get in a battle when nobody's really listening on social media? They just want people to believe what their opinion says.
Right.
It's not based on facts.
Right. And social media is not the place to have those. Like, those are in person. And now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, maybe I should reach out to her for her to be a guest on this show. But I would encourage people to follow someone by the name of Dr. Jen Bennett. Dr. Jen Bennett, two N's, two T's in her last name. She is a amazing individual. She is a Christian college professor down at Indiana Wesleyan, and she's a communications professor. And she's known.
You had her on the Small Church Media, right?
I had her on my podcast of how to be someone worth following online.
Sure.
And she actually wrote a book called Be Worth Following.
That'd be cool to get her on.
And the idea is the fact of what can you do online to be someone worth following, not the fact that, and her whole idea is the fact of, what we talked about is, just because you're not a quote-unquote influencer doesn't mean you don't have influence, and people are going to follow you online. So when is the right time to speak out, when is not? And something that was amazing to me is she'll post something, and she goes, you can go back on my Facebook feed and see it. Someone will say a comment they disagree with, and she'd be like, hey, I'd love to talk to you about it.
Reach out. Here's my phone number.
No, she seriously says, she goes, I would love to hop on Zoom and have that call, or just call you on the phone, sending you a message now.
Yeah,
and it's like, holy cow.
And how many responses has she actually had?
I don't know. But the fact of she's like, I'm willing to have the conversation with you. It's just not the right time or place to do it.
Yeah.
So, to bring the whole conversation up.
To land the plane?
Nope. To
throttle back the boat?
I was going to say not throttle back. I was going to say to bring the boat into the harbor.
To read the last sentence in the book.
To nail the 95 thesis. No, I'm kidding. Whole different ballgame. Let's end this mug. But, with the conversation of judge not, again, the Bible says, Jesus says, in the same manner by which you judge, same manner you judge them, you will be judged as well. I think that is a big humble pill for us to say, if I'm going to call out you,
it better be in the right
heart and the right spirit with the right goals. Right. And I first need to do a self-reflection and go, am I actually doing it wrong? Now that I think people can use an excuse of like, oh, well, I'm struggling with my own sin, so I don't have the ability to do it.
And that's not what it's saying. It's saying be humble because you are caught on sin as well on a daily basis.
Exactly. So are we called to judge other people? I would say we're not called to judge. We're called to come alongside and bring our brothers and sisters along with us.
Because there's one judge and he's already judged and everybody stands condemned.
And I love this quote. And I never knew the full quote until Beth told me it the other week where she goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink it. And if you try to make it drink it, you'll drown it.
Yeah. You've never heard that before?
I've never heard the end of it. I've only ever heard the beginning. I never heard the drown part until a couple of weeks ago. And I think the same goes true with the gospel of, we can lead a horse, we can lead someone to the feet of Jesus, but we can't say, drink, or else, that's not how it's supposed to do it. It's the fact of the Holy Spirit. If the Holy Spirit is indwelling a believer.
Take the sacraments.
Hey, yo, get that grape juice. I had a really bad thought. I'm like, get the bong.
Oh, sacraments. Sacraments are what brings us together. Sorry. Anyways,
that would be the greatest. Communion is what brings us together today. That would just be hilarious.
Communion is what brings us.
Wow, this is going off the rails real fast.
Go ahead.
But anywho, to land the plane, we're called not to judge people, but that doesn't mean that we're called to sit down and shut up either.
We're called for accountability with our brothers and to come alongside them.
And now, granted,
for restoration.
Granted, they may feel judged, and they honestly, guilt. That's what guilt does.
That's what the Holy Spirit does,
right? And that's what guilt does. And guilt and shame are different. And we gotta bring Neil on the podcast to talk about guilt and shame because he has a beautiful way he lays that out.
Sometimes guilt and shame aren't a bad thing.
No, it's the fact of the shame of sin that's already been forgiven. You moved on from come in that we have to take all thoughts captive.
Right.
But, at the end of the day, people will feel judged when you call them out.
Yes.
But that's why you need to come in with the spirit of meekness and gentleness and faith and mercy and seeking restoration, making sure you're not coming in with your own plane to go, but you're coming in to be like, look, I love you, and I can't watch you do this.
Yeah, you're hurting yourself.
Yep.
So
that's my last thought. Any last thoughts for you?
I'm good with that, brother. Let's land the plane.
Whew, let's do it.
Time for Fun Facts with Filler.
Are we butterflies? Are we landing the butterfly plane? We're watching us ourselves on the camera going, flutter.
If you're on YouTube, you know what we're doing.
It's ridiculous. But, dude, we've had a long conversation today.
Almost an hour and a half.
Almost an hour and a half. So let's not push it any longer, dude. I did not look at what the fun fact of the day was, and I'm excited to hear what you got for us, my friend.
So the fun fact of the day, which we're going to kind of just ease on out with,
I was tempted to mute you. It is mute, but never mind.
Is silence. The average person will spend 6 months of their life waiting for red lights to turn green.
Wait, what?
The average person will wait 6 months of their life for red lights to turn green.
the average.
Which makes me want to be a Paul Walker in Fast and Furious right now.
So
Screw them red lights.
So because you have so many red lights, you should just continue to tune into RTC to get through those red lights.
I'm
like
curious
that,
how many people actually listen to our show while they're in the car. Maybe that's what people should do. We should let people know, hey, how do you listen to RTC? Do you listen to us mainly at home, at work, on the go?
Well, it takes me 6 days to get through your podcast because they're so long.
It's true, though. It's true. Like, honestly, my podcast listening goes down a lot in the winter, and it gets boosted a lot in the summer because I'm on the mower.
mowing. Yeah, me too.
I'm on the mower. But like this year, dude, like it's been hard to keep up with mowing. So even my own personal podcast listening has been hard to do. But I'm just curious. I'm curious how the people listen.
Yeah.
How? Because we know how they find us. It seems like 99% of people lately has been
Sure.
Spotify.
Sure.
But I'm curious. I'm just curious.
Yeah. Go ahead and reach out to us and let us know your thoughts and how are you listening? Is it on a mower? Is it like riding a motorcycle or driving in your car? Or maybe it's late in bed or cooking dinner or
Washing dishes.
Whatever, all the things. So you can check us out on all the socials or check us out at realtalkchristianpodcast.com. Reach out to us on realtalkchristianpodcast@gmail.com or text us 574-400-5352. Also, don't forget, this is the last week before the Engedi Music Festival.
Yes.
If you are near Southwest Michigan and you want to come and hang out with the guys from RTC, just a couple of homeboys from not down under, but
No, we're not down under.
Up under?
We're around the bend. We're around the bend.
Just around the other bend.
We're just around the river bend.
Just around the South Bend.
Hey.
So come hang out with us. Go get your tickets at EngediMusicFest.com. I think it's $20 a ticket, I believe is the last time I looked, for each day. We're going to be there 2 days, Friday and Saturday. Come hang out. Get your own voice on the podcast. Sit down and have a little interview with us.
And don't forget, if you're over on Apple Podcasts, leave us that rating review. If you're on Spotify, leave a rating. But no matter what podcast platform you listen to, share this episode with a friend who needs to hear, because we're all about community. We want to grow community. We want to foster community. We want to literally have an online RTC family. And you can do that over at Facebook. Just literally look up Real Talk Christian Podcast on Facebook, find our group, and just come out and hang out with us. But I think that's all I got, dude. So should we let these married people on their way?
Let's go. Let them go.
I love it. So, hey, until next time, guys.
Take it easy.
Today's episode of Real Talk Christian Podcast is sponsored by the Christian